This conference will now be recorded.
Hi there, macroeconomics students. Professor George here. I'm going to do a short PowerPoint presentation on supply. I did one a minute ago on demand. This is on supply, and I have one more to do, which is going to be on putting the two together. Demand is a little bit easier because we all can think of ourselves as demanders. We go and we buy stuff. We buy food, we buy clothes, we buy gas, we buy stuff. We can imagine what it's like to be the demander. Supply is a little bit trickier because you have to think of yourself as somebody who would supply something. Most of us aren't suppliers. Most of us supply our labor to our worker, to our employer. So just remember, when you think about supply, don't look at the demand stuff. When you think about demand, don't look at the supply stuff. It's a hard discipline. Let me share my screen and go to my PowerPoints. Okay, so when we did demand, we have the demand curve, the law of demand, and the demand schedule. It's exactly the same for supply. The supply curve shows all the different price and quantity combinations that a seller is willing and able to produce during a particular period of time, ceteris paribus. So we have individual supply curves, which are individual producers. So you see here at 20 bucks for a t-shirt, this supplier will make 50,000 a year. If you're only going to bid 15 bucks, they'd make 45, 10, 35, 5, and 20. So what's the relationship that we see here? Is it inverse or direct? You see, as the price falls, right? This is the price falling, the quantity supplied falls. Or if you look at it from a slightly different perspective, you can say, as the price increases, the quantity supplied increases. I hope that makes sense to you. If you're being paid to tutor and the person says, I'm willing to pay you $5 an hour to tutor, you're not going to probably tutor that much. The more they're willing to pay you, probably the more that you would be willing to tutor. It's the same concept. Sorry, I'm having a few technical difficulties. There you go. Let me erase that. So here we have those points, those A, B, C, and D are just the ordered pair from the table that you just saw. So you see, as the price rises from 5 to 10 to 15 to 20, the quantity supplied of t-shirts rises. So is this an inverse relationship or a direct? It's direct. As the price goes up, the quantity supplied goes up. And try to have that be intuitive too. Don't just memorize it. That it makes sense that if you're in business to make money and the price that you get for your product goes up, you're going to want to sell more. So what is the law of supply? The law of supply is just reading that graph. It's a direct relationship. As the price of a good goes up, the quantity supplied will also go up, ceteris paribus. So it's a direct relationship between the price and the quantity supplied. Why does a supply curve have an upward sloping curve? Hopefully it just is kind of intuitive that people sell things to make profits generally. So as the price goes up, you would want to sell more. So this is just like what we did for demand. We have individual people supply, and then you add them all together to get the market supply. So here we have the example of, let me get a little thingy to point at. You have 25 will be done by Shirley, and 35 will be done by Tommy, and you add them together and you get 60. So the total supplied is just, you're adding together the individual supplies to get the total supply. And here we have it on a graph. We have all of Shirley's supply curve, all of Tommy's supply curve. You add them together and you get the market supply curve. Just remember, it's the same problem we had, not problem, but distinction is in demand. An increase in quantity supplied is simply a movement along a given supply curve. Price goes up, and this problem, you see it right here. Price goes up from 10 to 15. Quantity supplied goes up from 30 to 40. You're moving along a curve, and it's caused by price changing. The only thing, I'm trying to say it dramatic, the only thing that could change quantity supplied or quantity demanded is a change in price. Now, how do you change supply? A change in supply is going to be a shift of the entire curve. To the right, it's going to be an increase. To the left, it's going to be a decrease, exactly the same as demand. And it's going to be something other than price. So it's kind of like the determinants kind of stand behind the supply and demand. Okay, so here we have an increase in supply, a rightward shift of the curve. It goes to the right. Don't worry about the demand curve. It's just shifting that supply curve to the right. A decrease in supply is going to be shifting that whole supply curve to the left. I shouldn't have drawn that. It's a little bit like I'm drawing it down, but it's just to the left. A decrease in supply is a shift of the entire supply curve to the left. Now, a change in supply is caused by a change in the non-price determinants, or sometimes I call them shifters. All right, so these are shifters, and they're going to cause the whole curve to shift, and it's not because the price of the product changed. All right, here's where you want to get out your study guide or your notes and take down the 5 determinants of supply. So there's going to be a change in the number of sellers in the market. If we open up the market to other foreign countries to come into, there'll be more suppliers. A change in technology. The change in technology is almost always a good thing. A change in technology usually means that you've figured out some way to make your product more efficiently, therefore make it cheaper. So here's a good thing to remember. Anything that makes production cheaper is going to cause you to increase supply. Anything that makes it more expensive, you're going to decrease supply. So that takes us to the third one, is a change in resource prices. That just, the resources are land, labor, capital. So if any of those change in price, your supply curve will change. If the price of resources goes up, if you have to pay your workers more, that means it's more expensive. So you're going to decrease supply. A change in expectation of sellers is going to be like, that in the future, the price is going to go down. So you're going to want to sell more now. You're guessing about the price of your inputs and the price of your product. If you think you're going to make more in the future, you're going to supply less now. If you think you're going to be able to sell less in the future, you're going to try to sell more now. The last one is a change in the price of other goods the firm can produce with the same resources. That's a mouthful, but think opportunity cost. Okay, so the best example I can think of is if you have a factory and you make basketballs and you make volleyballs. If you are making about the same amount of both and the price of volleyballs goes really high, what's going to happen to your supply of basketballs? Are you going to want to make more basketballs or more volleyballs? Well, if the price of volleyballs goes up, you want to make more volleyballs. So you'll make less basketballs. So it depends on if your alternate use of your resources can get you more of a profit, you'll go there. Hey, that's a duplicate slide. You can never say that enough, huh? Those are your 5 shifters. Okay. Remember, we have the same thing here about moving along versus shift out. When you change the price of the product, the person who sells the product doesn't change the price. It's the market. Supply and demand will give you the price. If that price that you are given goes up, you'll sell more. If it goes down, you'll sell less. That's going to be moving along the supply curve. When one of those 5 things that I showed you twice changes, all right, I'm going fast here. So here we have it. This one shows you a movement. You have this right on your study guide. This is a change in quantity demanded. You've moved along your supply curve. This is a change in This is a change in quantity supplied. You're moving along your supply curve due to a change in price. This over here is an increase in supply due to something outside, a change in a non-price determinant, price of inputs, expectations, those kind of things. Well, that's it. So let me come back to my screen. So there's supply. I know I went fast. The main things to get are, how do you graph a change in quantity supplied? You move along a curve. How do you graph a change in supply? You shift your curve. What are the determinants of supply, or what are the 5 shifters? That's the same thing as demand. Next presentation, we're going to put them all together. See you then.